Hello, this is Max. In the guy's body, there exists a second personality that secretly meets with a girl. Upon discovering this, the guy secretly starts dating the same girl. Don't forget to subscribe. In his living room, a young man named Jonathan creates a video message for his brother, recounting the events of his day. He mentions various details, such as meeting a new coworker and his dinner in the fridge. He notes feeling unusually tired and asks his brother if he's experiencing the same fatigue. Surprisingly, Jonathan goes to bed in the afternoon and wakes up the next morning in a different bed, watching a video recorded by his identical-looking brother, John. John also complains about feeling tired and encourages Jonathan to pursue his female coworker. Later, Jonathan consults Dr. Nariman, who mentions a shift in his consciousness and reassures him that fatigue is a normal part of aging. At work, Jonathan receives praise for his work but has to decline a new project due to time constraints. John sympathizes with him about this decision but emphasizes their combined achievements. Jonathan discovers a napkin from the Rialto in John's pants, leading to a dispute about whether John has been going to bars late at night. Jonathan investigates further and visits the Rialto, where he realizes John is involved with a girl named Elena. This revelation angers him. He hires a private investigator, Ross, to gather information but avoids discussing his condition. Ross uncovers Jonathan's routine, including his 2 part-time jobs and a night spent with Alina. Jonathan begins stalking Alina while pretending everything is normal in his videos. Eventually, Alina mistakes him for John and kisses him, leading to further tension between the brothers. John admits his feelings for Alina, and Jonathan accuses him of dishonesty. Jonathan insists that John break up with Alina or reveal their unique condition to her. John refuses and ends up breaking up with Alina instead. Jonathan watches the video and remains indifferent to John's sadness. Alina then visits their apartment, and Jonathan reluctantly reveals the truth about their shared existence. Alina leaves in disbelief. Jonathan records another video expressing his frustration with John for breaking the rules but assures him that Alina won't return. He pleads to return to a semblance of normalcy. The next day, Jonathan wakes up in his bed, hoping things are back to normal, but finds no new video entry from John on the camera. 4 days pass, and John still hasn't recorded a video for Jonathan. Jonathan expresses his concern to Dr. Nariman, who understands that John is upset and suggests giving him time. She proposes that the brothers might benefit from spending some time apart to explore life individually, leaving Jonathan conflicted. Jonathan continues with his daily routine, recording videos for John and preparing meals. He mentions Dr. Nariman's suggestion of giving them space, but he firmly believes they can't do that given their unique situation. The following day, he notices that John hasn't eaten the dinner he prepared, leaving him with no other options. Desperate, Jonathan visits Alina and shows her a magazine that explains their condition. Alina initially dismisses it, but Jonathan insists on sharing their story. He tells her about their troubled infancy when they wouldn't stop crying, leading to their mother abandoning them at a hospital. Dr. Nariman was the one who discovered their split personalities and began their treatment. Jonathan points out the device behind his ear that keeps them separated and ensures they have equal time. He expresses his concern for John and pleads with Alina to record a message to persuade John to reconnect with him. That evening, Jonathan leaves a note on his phone for John to watch Elena's video. However, there is still no response from John the next day. At work, Jonathan's coworker, Allison, invites him to lunch, but he declines. She asks about his father's illness, which their coworkers believe is why Jonathan can only work part-time. Jonathan admits to having problems with his brother, and Allison sympathizes with him. Jonathan continues to beg John for communication, but days go by without any sign of John. He ends up taking on John's chores and admits to missing him, but John remains silent. Alina visits Jonathan at their apartment to return the magazine. Jonathan awkwardly invites her to lunch, and they discuss John. Alina met John when he came to the bar with Tom, and he entertained everyone with humorous stories. Jonathan explains that they are not supposed to have girlfriends to fulfill their responsibility to each other. Alina questions how they feel about the relationship, and Jonathan hesitantly mentions that they engage in it without emotional attachment. Alina wonders why John didn't tell her the truth, and Jonathan assumes it was to avoid scaring her away. Throughout the day, Jonathan can't stop thinking about Alina. He starts texting her and even takes her to his workplace to show off his work, as he has never done so with anyone else before. Later, Jonathan records a video for John but decides not to mention his growing friendship with Alina. Over the next few days, Jonathan and Alina spend more time together. Initially, their conversations revolve around John, but gradually, they start sharing more about their own lives. Alina invites Jonathan to her apartment, where they watch a French movie, and he loses track of time, rushing back to his apartment before it's John's turn to be active. He considers recording a video for John but ultimately decides against it. The following day, Jonathan turns on the camera while getting ready for work, and to his surprise, John's video starts playing. John explains that he got worried about not making a recording the previous night, so he's leaving a message after a long while. He shares how he wandered around downtown while listening to music until a kind lady saved him from getting hit by a cab. This encounter makes him reflect on their mother. John finally forgives Jonathan and apologizes for not talking to them sooner. Jonathan visits Alina and informs her that John has started talking to him again. While he's glad about the reconciliation, it means he can't see Alina anymore to honor his brother's trust. Believing it's their last time together, Alina kisses him, and Jonathan, nervous but willing, admits that he'd never been with a woman before. Alina smiles and they get close. Later that day, Jonathan records a video for John, claiming he had his first experience with Allison instead of Alina. The next day, John congratulates Jonathan on the experience and mentions considering a security guard job to avoid distractions. At work, Jonathan asks his boss, Hans, for permission to work on the West Side Tower project by extending his hours on weekdays and taking weekend shifts. Hans is initially hesitant about the conditions but eventually agrees, recognizing Jonathan's potential. During a visit to Dr. Nairman's office, she notices Jonathan's improved demeanor. He shares his excitement about the new project and his interest in taking art classes. He mentions that he and John have returned to their routine, which pleases Dr. Nairman, as she believes it's crucial for their well-being. In John's next video, he appears sad. He expresses his inability to attend Tom's wedding, which coincides with Jonathan's active hours and the loneliness he feels in his new security job. Jonathan continues spending time with Alina, and she expresses concern that their relationship is still centered around John. They both confess their genuine affection for each other and decide to keep their relationship a secret. One day, Jonathan wakes up in an unfamiliar home next to another woman and discovers a bruise on his face. When he returns home, he watches John's video, in which John mentions meeting a stranger, Ross, who asked about his relationship with Alina. Ross got into a fight with John and revealed that Jonathan had hired him to follow John. Panicked, Jonathan rushes to the office, but upon realizing he left his files at home, he decides to leave. Allison checks in on him, and he tries to make up an excuse about the bruise. Later, Jonathan confides in Alina, explaining that he was worried about John enjoying life too much. He reveals that when they were 9 years old, they had a third brother who prevented them from functioning properly. Dr. Nairman removed the third brother, and Jonathan was afraid that John might ask to be removed to have a normal life with Alina. Upon returning home, Jonathan records an apology for hiring Ross and confesses that he was jealous of how easily John embraced life. He feared that John wouldn't love him anymore if he found someone else. The next day, John reassures him that no one can replace him in his life and takes responsibility for not initially disclosing his relationship with Alina. Before heading to work, Jonathan searches for his earphones and stumbles upon John's antidepressants. He raises his concerns with Dr. Nairman, who reassures him that the medication won't affect Jonathan. Jonathan starts to worry if his actions might be the cause of John's depression and confesses his relationship with Alina to Dr. Nairman. She suggests that Jonathan is seeking a physical connection to John through his relationships and advises him to admit the truth to John. Jonathan, reluctant to reveal his secrets, records a confession but deletes it, choosing to maintain a facade of normalcy. Subsequent turmoil in his life, including losing his job and his relationship with Alina, pushes him to confront his guilt and apologize to John sincerely, hoping for reconciliation. However, tensions escalate as John wishes to be eradicated, leaving Jonathan grappling with their coexistence and individual struggles. Dr. Nairman, trying to mediate the situation, reveals more about each brother's state of mind, indicating that Jonathan's guilt might be making him feel like he wants to fade away, while John, despite his external struggle, is thriving. Jonathan struggles to maintain consciousness and control, and the collapse of his mental state leads to a chaotic series of events and the eventual intervention of Dr. Nairman. who conducts tests to understand their state better. She reassures Jonathan that neither brother will be removed and explains that John's actions weren't a conscious effort to encroach on Jonathan's time, but a manifestation of their intertwined existences and conflicting desires. In understanding that John's consciousness is prevailing, Jonathan desires to share the remaining moments with John. Jonathan experiences recurring blackouts, eventually finding himself in a taxi heading to JFK Airport, a suitcase indicating a journey initiated by John. The series of blackouts continue, leading him to request a detour to the beach, a final chance to witness a sunset before the inevitable loss of consciousness. A conversation ensues between the brothers, mediated by the taxi driver, wherein Jonathan, embracing his impending fate, reassures John of the absence of pain in his transitions. This final communication between the brothers is marked by a poignant goodbye from Jonathan, expressing his gratitude for the shared existence, and an embrace with the driver symbolizing his farewell to John. John then awakens, receives the parting message from Jonathan, and resumes the journey to JFK Airport, experiencing a continuity in consciousness, unmarred by transitions back to Jonathan. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.